Alright guys, welcome back. GM Light here. So looks like we got 4 Pet Sematary movies to rank. So let's start from the top and go from worst to best. So coming in at number 4, and I was really hoping that this is not what I'd have to say today, but definitely Pet Sematary Bloodlines, the new movie. It could have been a very interesting, heart-wrenching story that elaborates on a pretty pivotal thing in Judd's life. Just came across so bland, generic. You don't actually get the feeling that Judd lost his friend or that there's any emotional stakes in this movie. It plays it so generic and undercooked that it doesn't work for me on nearly any level. I really hate that by the time the movie opens up, Timmy Baterman's dad already made this decision, and I'm even more not a fan of the fact that nobody else in the town knew that Timmy was dead. It just sets up for this weird situation where everything is so underplayed. Judd's like, why is Timmy acting so weird? Instead of dealing with the emotional complexities of the fact that he lost his friend and now he's back, but he's different. There's something that could have hit so hard about that, but they don't play to any of the strengths of the series as a whole. And I found myself kind of just feeling absolutely nothing throughout this whole movie. Not that it's boring or anything, but it's just every story direction made me think, like, really? Like, is that the direction that we want to go in? They don't take advantage of this premise. So the thing is, tough to make a prequel and make you actually invested in a story where you know how it's going to end eventually. You know what characters are going to be in the original movie, and you know that eventually Judd's going to die, so how do you get hooked on this? And they could have played to the emotional angle of the father losing his son, Judd and Manny losing their friend, but you don't feel the weight of that decision, the decision of having to take out Timmy. You don't even feel like Timmy is Manny and Judd's friend. It doesn't seem like they care that they have to kill their friend. And then when they're gonna treat it so flippantly, the audience isn't gonna care. So unfortunately, at the bottom, Pet Sematary Bloodlines. So for the next movies, fortunately, the rest are movies that I really like or really enjoy. And honestly, I don't really know if I feel solidly about my third place choice. I feel like the third and the second could potentially go back and forth, but for very different reasons. But I guess I'll just settle at number 3 with Pet Sematary 2. Now, this movie has none of the emotional complexity of the original. It's very silly, it's very stupid, it's very campy and corny, but it's so fucking entertaining. I wasn't expecting to enjoy this movie. I avoided it for years like the plague because I've heard nothing but bad things about it. I'm a huge fan of that original, so I just never thought that a campy, stupid sequel to that original movie would work for me. But it just fires on all cylinders. It comes from just such a different era, and they do things that are so entertaining. Clancy Brown holds this movie on his back because he's just ridiculously watchable in this role as this douchey sheriff, and he adds a flavor to the movie that I think is just very unique and different. So many wild scenes and moments with Clancy Brown, and then the rest of the characters are also enjoyable to watch. I think the 2 leads are very charming. You buy into their friendship, and whenever there's that kind of outsider loneliness aspect to 2 boys being friends, that always adds something to it. It just feels like such a blast from the past. It's a very dated movie, but it's so entertaining, watchable. It randomly gets a mean streak sometimes, and that could work to the benefit or against the movie. I just think it's kind of funny. I found myself really enjoying it, so I'm gonna place it at number 3. For number 2, I'm gonna go with the 2019 remake of Pet Sematary. Now, this movie sets things up very well. I love this updated version of the source material. They cast all the perfect, great actors that take the material very seriously, getting John Lithgow to be Judd, Jason Clarke to play Lewis Creed. It feels like they're like dignifying the source material by taking it so seriously, getting great actors to play these roles. And something that I like about this movie too is that it is very dark. They actually spend some time in the beginning of the movie discussing mortality, setting up the themes of the movie, all the stuff that you want in a Pet Sematary movie. It tries to tackle. They tap a bit more into the lore of this franchise, this burial ground, and it makes the themes from the original work very well. I say where this movie kind of I have some issues with it is the fact that it's a little bit too ambitious. While it has the same runtime as the original movie, it tries to tackle so many different things that the original movie doesn't really touch, where the original movie's a lot more concise, straight to the point with the story. This one tries to delve into a bunch of different things, themes from the books, things where I feel like I have a lot more context of where they're coming from and why they made some of the decisions that they made in this movie because I read the book. But you shouldn't have to read a book to understand where a movie's coming from, so that becomes inevitably a problem for this movie. And since it has its hand in so many different cookie jars, it ends up being a little bit underdeveloped and undercooked because they can only go surface level on all these different themes and ideas that they're trying to tackle that weren't present in the original movie. But overall though, they take some different risks and things that I'm glad that they tried different things. If you're gonna remake a movie, you shouldn't make it exactly the same, even if a contemporary remake of the original Pet Sematary I think would have been cool. It's still neat to see them flip the roles, have Ellie be the one that was killed instead of Gage. That's a very interesting, bold new direction to take, and in certain aspects it works really well in this movie. I like that we have a kid that can actually articulate. That's something that you don't really have with Gage because he's an infant, but now since you have the older child being the one who's killed and brought back, you can actually have these conversations, the discussions of them being brought back, what that's like, and kind of some more of that emotional manipulation and discussion that this burial ground's gonna do with this undead kid. Also too, obviously Ellie's gonna pose a little bit more of a threat as an older kid, so when she starts going on a killing spree, goes after Judd, I like the design of her wearing the mask and the dress and stuff. It makes for a more intimidating threat overall, and it makes more sense in the movie. So overall, although I have problems with this movie, I'm not as much of a fan of the ending as I am with the original, and I think that they try too many different things that they can't fully tackle. I am a big fan of this remake, and I really do enjoy it. It's just not quite great for me. But for what is definitely the best, easily by a country mile, not to say that I didn't enjoy 2 and 3, the original Pet Sematary. It's easily in contention with The Shining for my favorite Stephen King adaptation, and the thing is too, it's also coming from some of my favorite Stephen King source material. This movie works for me on basically every level. It just sets up this family and what becomes the ultimate destruction of the family. You see this family fall apart. It's thematically rich, it's very dark, it's very tough to watch at times, but the fact that Lewis can't accept the loss of his family, he just can't accept fate, and the lengths that he goes to bring his family back to make himself whole again. It's so heartbreaking to watch, it's heart-wrenching, they hit on all the right emotions, and they tell the story just incredibly well. This is what creates some of the most interesting stories about what people are willing to do when they're desperate, and what can make someone more desperate than losing a loved one. It also does too what some of the best horror movies do. It makes you think about what you would do in this situation and the lengths you'd go to bring someone back you love, what you would do for a second chance, and at what point is it worth it. And it just shows you the absolute destruction of this family and the fact that there's consequences to the fact that Lewis can't let go. He can't accept fate, he can't accept things, and because he struggles so much with that, you get a very dark, kind of harsh movie, but it works so damn well because of those dark themes. On top of that, you have a very charismatic side character with Judd Crandall, played by Fred Gwynne. He injects a lot of personality and kind of levity into this movie. He's just such a unique character, and he's unique to the point that even an actor as incredible as John Lithgow can't really hold a candle to this performance, because what he does is he plays this character so damn well. Overall, it's just a fantastic movie. I watch it all the time. It's very emotionally resonant with me. I find it to just be a very powerful movie, but also a very heavy movie. But that's my ranking of the Pet Sematary movies. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'd love to hear. I'm GM Light. Have a good one.